Today I'm taking the May Crafty Crew kit from Crafty Stamp Co. and turning it into this adorable little recipe album. Hey, it's Beth. Welcome. Today I'm going to be using the March 2025 Crafty Crew kit from Crafty Stamp Co. And it's a every other month kit that comes, and they give you this awesome mesh bag to store your items in or use as a project type bag. And then this month's kit kind of had a baking theme. So we have the Patissier Meadow stamp set. So this is Meadow, and she is ready to do some cooking or baking. We have some little kitchen icons and accessories. Happiness is homemade, life is short, lick the bowl, I can't, I have cookies to bake, and baker's gonna bake. And then there's also the Suey Chef's stamp set, and it's got these cute little piggies. And then sentiments are, if I share my food with you, it's a big deal. Secret ingredient equals love, good food, good mood, save real life, it's delicious. We have the damask stencil, and then some red gingham ribbon and red and white baker's twine, which is fun. Thank you that card that came with the kit. And then the 6x6 pad comes in this awesome little sleeve that you can store it in. And it's great, you know, if you have scraps. It's always nice to have something to put it back into. But this is the Sugar and Spice 6x6, and I love the retro vibe with not just the colors, but some of the icons. It is a 24 sheet pad, and it's double-sided, and the paper is like nice and thick and luscious. So I'm kind of showing you one side, and then we'll turn it over and you can see the other side. So you do get a mix of solids and patterns. And some of the patterns are baking icons. Some are just kind of some general patterns. So nice, and kind of a nice variety there. And then with this kit, I am going to be making a recipe album. I thought this would be a fun collection to do that with. So let's get crafty.
I've already cut my chipboard pieces for the cover. I have one that is 6 by 6.5 inches, one that is 6.5 by 6.5 inches, one at 3 by 6.5 inches, and then two at 1 by 6.5 inches. And these are the pieces that will kind of comprise the cover and the spine. So to cover that, I have two pieces of 12 by 12 that I trimmed down both to 9 inches tall. And that will give me plenty of room to lay out my chipboard pieces as well as fold it over to kind of create the full cover. So I'm just trying to situate things here. Those spine pieces ended up being just a hair longer. The chipboard just came from my stash. It's things that have come with pad covers or in craft orders. You know, sometimes they'll stick chipboard in just to keep things from getting bent. And then now I'm going to go ahead and glue everything down. I did use a bit of ATG just to kind of hold it in place while the glue dries. I wanted to use the wet glue because it's kind of cheaper and quicker to use, but it doesn't dry as fast. So I just wanted it to have something to kind of hold it while I'm moving things around. And I don't think I said this earlier, but this is the Smash Those Small Pads collaboration, and it's just a small collaboration I've been doing with my friend Sarah, who's crafting and relaxing here on YouTube, Kathy, who is Stampin' Cat over on Instagram, and both of their accounts will be linked below, so you can go check out the small pads that they are working through this month and the projects that they are doing. So each month we basically just pick a pad smaller than 12 by 12 and work on using it up. I'm going to fold over the ends now of that pattern paper, and then where I kind of have the squares on the corners, I'm going to miter those. I'm going to trim them at an angle just so that it kind of folds and lays better on the corners and it doesn't get all bunchy. I'm using my bone folder to kind of reinforce the folds. And then I am bringing in some score tape. I'm going to be using a little bit of score tape and my Barely Arts glue for this part of the project. Again, the score tape kind of holds it in place, and then I'm using the wet glue on the chipboard itself just so I don't have to bring in some more score tape. And I like to do some on the edge of the chipboard and then some on the edge of the paper, just to have two places where the paper is being held on to the chipboard. I just feel like it's a more seamless, well, it's a stronger hold, but then it also kind of creates a little bit more seamless coverage. There's no less bubbles or things like that. So now that I have everything covered, I am going to kind of bend it up, find my fold lines, and I will eventually be covering the spines, but I am going to go through the pattern paper that was in the paper pad and figure out what I want to use for the inside and what I want to use for the outside covers. So this isn't going to be like a full tutorial. This is just my process. I do have another video that I made one of these, where I made several of these a few years ago, and I did a video on one of them. And so I will also link that in the description box below. It might be a little bit more in tutorial form. I'm going to kind of get you through the making the elements of the album, and then once I go to decorate, because I do share how I decorate it and kind of use up more of the paper. So I will, once I get to that point, I'll kind of cut over to some music and just let you enjoy the decorating. But I need 3 pieces of the pattern paper for the inside cover, but then I want to cover the spines on the inside as well. And I remembered I needed to, well, I kind of got ahead of myself here. There is a waterfall element to my album, and so I'm trimming down my papers for those pages, even though I don't quite need them yet. But these pieces are 5.5 by 4 3/4, and you just score 1/4 inch on the longest side. And then you will be creating, and there are 5 of these, and then we'll be creating that element here in a little bit. I cut 2 of that kind of solid tan paper. I cut 2 pieces of that down to 2.5 by 6, and that will kind of cover up the inside of the spines, since my paper, I'm using the 6 by 6 for the inside and decorating the cover, so it's not going to reach the full 6.5 inch height of the chipboard cover. And so this will just cover where the chipboard is pieced together. And then I'm going to start with my piece over on the far right, and is 2.5 by 6 inches. And then this middle piece is the full 6 by 6. And then the piece that I'm going to be using on the left is 5 3/4 by 6, because it's not as wide of a piece. When I got this month's Crafty Crew kit, I kind of knew immediately what I wanted to do with it. I just thought it would be fun. I hadn't made one of these folios in a while, and I just thought it would be the perfect collection for that. And so it's always nice when you receive like a pad or a kit, and you know from the moment you get it, you know exactly what you want to use it for, what it would be perfect for. So I'm excited to finally get to make this. I'm just kind of, now that I've added a layer on the inside, I'm just again kind of making sure those folds work. I needed to bring in some more larger pattern paper to cover the spines on the outside. I wanted it to go the full 6.5 inches from top to bottom on the spines. of the outside cover, and so I did bring in some additional paper from my stash. That red polka dot on the cover is also just some papers from my stash. But I thought the blue would kind of contrast well with the red, and then the black of the pattern paper that I'm going to be layering over it. So these two pieces are 2.5 by 6.5 inches. And so now that these are down, I can go ahead and add my pattern paper, and I totally forget at this point that I was going to do the ribbon across the back first and then put this paper down, but I kind of just got in a groove and kept going and don't realize until after this that I should have put the ribbon down, but it was too late. It wasn't coming back up, so you'll see how I fix that here in just a bit. So this is when I pull the ribbon out and I'm like, oh man. But the pattern paper, the apron paper, for the back was 6 by 6. The pattern paper that's going on the front left cover is 5 3/4 by 6. And then there will be another piece of pattern paper that I cut to 2.5 by 6. So this is where I'm trying to figure out how can I fix this. I still want to adhere the ribbon to the back, and I'm trying to figure out how I can still make this work. So I just decided to go ahead and add a contrasting pattern over the top. So I cut it down to probably like, I think it's 4 by 4 square. And then we'll center it. And then I just put a little of the score tape down to hold my ribbon. And then when I glue the pattern paper over it, that will kind of help hold the ribbon in place. All is not lost, but do as I say and put the ribbon down before you put any decorations on the back cover, and not as I do. And in the other video that I will link below, you'll see that I actually use magnet closures instead of ribbon, but I did want to take advantage of the ribbon that came in the kit. Once I get these pattern papers laid down on the cover, I can go ahead and jump back to the inside and start adding the different elements that go in there. There are 3 different elements. There are going to be the waterfall that's going here on the left hand side. There will be a pocket in the middle, and then there are going to be some actual like pages as well. So on these I have my 1/4 inch score, and I'm just I end up using wet glue because I don't have the thinnest score tape or scrapbook.com tape to fit on my 1/4 inch score mark. So I'm just using some wet glue and making sure to burnish it down really well. I put one down and then just line up the next one underneath and keep going from there. Now, in full disclosure, I did score them on the wrong side, so my pages are longer than they're supposed to be. And so I realized this as I'm going, like, why is this not working? Why is my page longer than my book? So I kind of jump back in and go up above on this one, and then I end up going it back in and trimming all of my pages down at some point so that the waterfall element actually fits inside the cover. Now that the waterfall is done, I'm going to move to the pocket in the center, and my camera didn't record for some reason, so I'm going to remake the pocket for you. I trimmed a piece down to 3.5 by 6.5 inches, and then I'm scoring a 1/4 inch in on the 2 sides and the bottom, and then I'm folding that up, kind of mitering the corners again just to help it fold. And then I take a little circle punch to create a notch so that it shows as a pocket, and then I glued it down. So sorry that I didn't record that originally, but I did at least make another pocket with you because I did want you to see that. So now we're going to move into the last element, which is the kind of like side loading pages. And I need 12 sheets of pattern paper to cover my pages, and then I'll need 6 pieces of cardstock for the pages itself. So once I get all of that situated, I'm going to bring my cardstock in, and I'm going to cut 6 pieces down to 6.5 by 6 inches, and then score 1/2 inch in from the side. And then this will ultimately give me 6 by 6 inch size pages once the score's in. So the paper that I'm using to cover the cardstock, I trimmed all of those down to 5 3/4, I believe. So once you get the mat down, you're not going to end up, I guess, with a full 6 by 6 inch surface that's, you know, decorated, but the space is there if you need it. And basically I was trying to use one of each pattern, but I did end up having to pull in, I think, one pattern twice based on what I had left. So like I said, this is kind of the last element. So I will go ahead and add these pages in. I'm going to score them, and then we'll add them into my album, and then we'll kind of let you guys just chill to some music instead of hearing me kind of talk about the process, because the rest of it is just the really fun part of actually just decorating. I do pull in, when I'm decorating, I do pull in the 2 stamp sets and stamp some of the images and all the sentiments and do some coloring and paper piecing, and I will kind of show those in more detail at the end, but I did do that off camera just because that took a little bit of time. So now that I have my pages scored, I am going to use some, I believe, score tape. Oh, nope, I'm decorating first, sorry. And then I will use score tape to line up my pages, and I'm putting them kind of in the spine area so that, and I'll line 3 up on the left side of the middle pocket and then 3 up on the right side of the middle pocket, and I start gluing down the outermost page first and then kind of work in from there. So there should be kind of about an equal distant space on that spine, like around all the pages. And then I do end up bringing in a strip to cover the white space of the, I guess, last page, on the most inner page on each side. So if you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, I do have another video on this. My intention wasn't to make this a full tutorial, but I thought I would explain my process if it's something that you are interested in making. And like I said, this kit was perfect, so I was kind of excited to be able to put this together. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the album, and we'll touch base again at the end.
There were days where we thought we wouldn't make it out, but we stuck it out. Today's our day. Today's our day. There were nights we would fight, no wind in sight, nothing was right. Tonight's our night. Tonight's our night. I'll fight for you until this life is over. There's no giving up here, babe. We'll make it out and fall in love tonight. Ain't nothing needed but us feeling right. Just take a chance, we got a wild ride. Wait and see, you and me, we were meant to be. We were meant to be. We were meant to be. were times when we found it, fell back in love, the best still to come. Our time is now. Our time is now. I'll fight for you until this life is over. There's no giving up here, babe. We'll make it out and fall in love tonight. Ain't nothing needed but us feeling right. Just take a chance, we got a wild ride. Wait and see, you and me, we were meant to be. We were meant to be. We were meant to be. We were meant to be.
Okay, here is my finished album. And you can open it up and you have multiple layers, little waterfalls with the pockets. And I may try and print some more like smaller recipe cards that will fit in the pockets. And then this is a pocket. And then we've got the pages, and also I'm trying to decide how I want to attach them here. I may do like the photo corners just so that, because it's like you don't want to glue anything in because then you can't, unless it's single-sided and you can't see the back of the recipe card. And I always tend to, whenever I do write on a recipe card, I do tend to go toward the back a lot. So I may do like photo corners or something that can tuck the recipes in. And cute little piggy that I stamped on some of that like pinkish polka dot and then colored some up. And my other piggy. And then on this one I stamped the oven mitt on that kind of harlequin pattern. I don't remember exactly what that pattern is called, but then I used red marker and just colored in the heart and the little ruffle. And then my 2 recipe cards, and I did end up adding white to the back so that there's room. And then this pocket is deep enough that you can fit several recipe cards in there. So there's that. I just thought this would be like a fun way to store some family recipes. And then this meadow from the Patisserie Meadow stamp set, I ended up paper piecing her. So I colored some of it. I colored her skin and her shirt in the cookbook, but then I stamped the chef's hat on that polka dot. I stamped her hair on this side of the rolling pins just to give her kind of like that blondish color. And then it's, I don't know, I'm not sure I like how I paper pieced the pants too, because I thought that would be an easy one to piece because I didn't have to like cut around too much. But I don't know, I don't know if I like how the dimension changes, but I like the dimension of the hair and the hat, like on the shadows of her face. But anyway, I was just trying something different, something fun instead of coloring. If you know me, I'm not always the biggest colorer. And then I added my recipes here in vinyl. And that is my little recipe album. I love the colors of the paper. You know, it's kind of like a vintage vibe. And then of the paper, I still have some scraps left. And I have a folder of stuff that I've kind of been throwing things together for a recipe journal. So like kind of a bigger one where you can tuck recipes in, write notes and things like that. So I will probably just take this and throw it in with that. And then I still have the twine, some of the ribbon left, stamp sets obviously. And then I didn't actually use the stencil. I kind of forgot about the stencil. But I like the envelope that the paper came in. That is reusable for some 6x6 papers in my stash, and I love the mesh bag as well, so those will definitely get reused. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and if the Crafty Crew kit is something you're interested in, even though the May kit is no longer available, I will throw a link in the description box below where you can sign up, because it comes out every other month, so you can sign up and be eligible for the July kit. So hope you guys enjoyed and maybe got some inspiration. As always, I thank you so much for your time and hope you all have a very crafty day.